On today's episode, we're combining pork belly and cinnamon rolls to make the most delicious pork belly cinnamon rolls. The first thing that we want to do today is butterfly our pork belly. So by butterflying, all I'm going to do is take my knife, go about halfway down the pork belly, make a cut, and I'm just going to keep going all the way across until this is completely butterflied. All I'm doing here is making small incisions all the way across the pork belly, and the reason that I want to butterfly this today is because I virtually want this to look exactly the way a pastry would look if I was turning it into an actual cinnamon roll. If you need to adjust while you're making cuts, that's completely fine. Just adjust the blade a little bit to make sure that you have a pretty nice and even cut here. Once I'm getting close to the end of my pork belly, I just want to make sure that I'm evening everything out here. I just want to make sure that I don't go too far and we don't completely separate this pork belly. Now that we've butterflied our pork belly, you can see that it doubled in size lengthwise. It's not as thick, but that's going to be perfect for rolling up our cinnamon rolls. Now that we've butterflied our pork belly, it's time to start seasoning everything up. So one thing I want you to think about is just having a contrast of flavors. I understand that sweet complements pork very, very well, but I don't want this to be so sweet exactly like a cinnamon roll. The reason that we're calling this a cinnamon roll is because it's going to end up looking like it in the end. So we're starting with cinnamon sugar because we still do believe that pork and sugar go together very well, whether it's regular white sugar or it's brown sugar. And of course, because we're calling this pork belly cinnamon rolls, we did want to add that cinnamon aspect to this. Next up, we're going down with a layer of Southern Hospitality. And I talked to you guys about contrast of flavors. So I want a little more sweetness, but I also want that beautiful red color. And of course, this is going to have a little bit of spice to it. Last but not least, I'm going to go down with a little bit of steak rub by Killer Hogs. I want a little bit of texture in there, and I want this to bring some savory notes to my pork belly. Now I'm going to go ahead and flip the pork belly over, and we're going to do the same exact thing to the opposite side. Cinnamon sugar, Southern Hospitality, and some steak rub. Now it's time to start rolling up our pork belly cinnamon roll, and I'm starting the opposite side of me, and I'm pulling towards myself. So the reason I'm doing this is because this fat is going to be on the outside, and we can still get it nice and rendered. Now it's time to start setting up the Weber kettle, and today we're going to take advantage of the Weber charcoal baskets. I'm going to start by filling both of our baskets completely up, if I can actually get the charcoal in the basket, and that right there looks perfect to me. You'll notice that I have a little space right here in the middle, and I did that intentionally. I do want a little bit of space so I could put a charcoal starter down there and start this charcoal. Now I'm going to go ahead and put my fire starters down in my charcoal basket, and I'm just going to come in from the side and get it lit. Now it's time for us to be patient and wait for a little bit of our charcoal to start getting ashed over. Once that happens, we can add wood chunks and start this smoke. Around 15 minutes later, our coals are nice and ashed over in some of our areas here in these baskets. So what I'm going to do is I have some cherry chunks that I'm just going to go ahead and put over those coals that are ashed over and start getting the smoke rolling. I don't need too much smoke today. I'm going to get plenty of flavor from all the stuff that we have on this pork belly, but you can already see there's some smoke rolling. We're going to let this come up to temp. It's going to take around 15 or 20 minutes, and then we're finally going to put on our pork belly cinnamon rolls. Something to note as well is that I have the hinges right over where these baskets are. If I need to add more charcoal during this cook, this makes it a lot easier to do that. While the smoker was coming up to temp, we put our pork belly in the freezer wrapped in saran wrap. We wanted to do this just so it could hold shape a little bit better, but now we're going to cut it up into our cinnamon rolls. First, I'm going to make one cut right down the middle. Then I'll cut this in half one more time. And right there is our pork belly cinnamon roll. This gives us the opportunity to also season the insides. Now I'm going to remove the saran wrap and put our pork belly cinnamon rolls into a foil pan. Now we're going to go ahead and season the top exactly like we did the outside. Start with cinnamon sugar first, then a light layer of Southern Hospitality, followed by some steak rub by Killer Hogs. Now that our smoker is finally up to temp around 275 degrees, it's time to put our pork belly cinnamon rolls into the smoker. So we're going to be monitoring temperature, and we're just making sure that we get that nice color. After about an hour on our pork belly, you can see that it's starting to get that nice red color, and we're definitely starting to see some fat render here. So I'm seeing some juices pooling on our pork belly cinnamon rolls, but that's completely okay. So what I'm going to do just to make sure I'm getting an even cook here is I'm going to go ahead and rotate these cinnamon rolls just a little bit. After another hour or so, we'll come back out and we'll check on our pork belly cinnamon rolls to see if it's time to wrap and start getting that beautiful flavor inside this wrap. It's been another hour on our pork belly cinnamon rolls, and now we want to check for color and fat render. I'll show you exactly what I mean when I'm talking about fat render, but I think it might be really close to time to wrap. When we're looking at our pork belly cinnamon rolls, when I'm talking about fat render, I'm talking about this fat layer that's on our pork belly. One of the things that I like to do to know that this fat is getting nice and rendered is do two things. I'll poke it just to see how it feels, and you can see that it's really nice and soft, and I'm also going to look at the color. Once this color starts getting a little bit more yellow, I know that it is rendering properly. So those are a few things that I'm looking for in this pork belly. Now, I'm also just going to go ahead and probe the meat and take a look, and you'll see we're around 170 degrees or so. So there's layers of fat and there's layers of meat within this pork belly, and that's exactly what's going to give us that really decadent bite here in the end. At this part of the cook, now we want to start getting the fat renderings out of this pan. The biggest reason that we put these in this pan is just so we could keep that shape and make these stay looking like a cinnamon roll. For our wrap today, we're going to put some butter inside of this pan. Now I'm going to go over all of the pork belly with some sugar in the raw. And last but not least, we're going to go over top with some vinegar sauce. So I like to put the sauce all over the butter. Don't ask me why. I just like doing that, and I think that it just makes some magic happen in there. Probably actually doesn't do anything, but that's just my preferred way of doing it. I'm going to drizzle some all over top. Last thing we're going to do is we're going to put foil over this bad boy, and we're just going to let this continue to smoke until these are nice and tender. At this point, it's been an hour and a half on our pork belly cinnamon rolls, and now we want to check to see for tenderness. You can see that it is bubbling in there. It looks absolutely delicious. I mean, you can see my thermometer is reading over 210 degrees. Yeah, I mean, just absolutely jelly. That is what I'm looking for on these pork belly cinnamon rolls. We're going to get this pork belly out. We're going to put it on the pit, and then it's time to finish everything up. Now my goal is just to get everything out of this pan and put it on a rack so we could put this back on the smoker just to tack up and get that last bit of flavor. So I'm going to go into that foil pan, and I'm going to get some of that wrap that we had in there, and I want to take a taste, and that's absolutely delicious. What we're going to do is we're going to spoon this over our cinnamon rolls, let it set, and then we'll finally top it with some sauce. Doesn't have to be too much that's going over top of this, but I do want to put some moisture back. One of the things that I do want to do is hit the top with a little more cinnamon sugar. And while these might not look exactly like cinnamon rolls, I can tell you what, they look amazing, they look really good, and I know that they're going to turn out delicious. After about 5 minutes tacking up on the smoker, you guys can see exactly what I was going for. I utilized that butter, that sugar that was in the wrap, and then we've got a little bit of tackiness here. This right here is just about a perfect pork belly cinnamon roll. The last thing I want to do is add some barbecue sauce over top of these, and for that we're using Hardcore Carnivore's burnt end sauce. This leaves a great red color, and of course it has a delicious, delicious flavor. Now it's time to take a bite of our pork belly cinnamon roll and see how we did. Oh my gosh, that is truly from the bottom of my heart and soul. So delicious, so tender, so juicy. The flavor is incredible. You do taste cinnamon for sure. I got a clean bite, you guys can see that, a big clean bite. This is something that you absolutely have to try. If you do it exactly like this, I promise you everybody that tries it is absolutely gonna love it. I can feel barbecue sauce on my face, so it's time to go. As always, Really appreciate you guys tuning into this video. Thanks, and we'll see you on the next one.